Hello. In this week's Torah portion, Kedoshim, we are commanded, quote, "You will not hate your brother in your heart," unquote. This is a call for tolerance. We Jews must be particularly sensitive to intolerance because so many catastrophes happen to us because of intolerance. In our case, intolerance of those who are more successful. What is tolerance? The dictionary defines it as sympathy, permissiveness, or indulgence for beliefs or practices that differ from one's own or conflict with them. I would add that there are 5 degrees of tolerance. First, no tolerance. I will try to harm you. Example, the Nazis. Second, I will try to stop you. Example, the communists. Third, I will not associate with you. Example, converts out of Judaism. Fourth, I will associate with you with some restrictions. Example, less observant Jews. And finally, full tolerance. I will associate with you with no restrictions. Example, Jews with different views. The Jewish view of tolerance is to make sure the commandments are followed and to rebuke those who do not follow them. Indeed, the Torah says, "You will not hate your brother in your heart. You will rebuke your neighbor, even repeatedly, and not bear sin because of him," unquote. It doesn't say to hate him, or to avoid him, or to harm him, or to kill him, only to rebuke him. The Talmud adds, quote, "Rava said, you must rebuke transgressors even 100 times. Even a student must rebuke a teacher if necessary," unquote. Note that the Torah even makes it a matter of self-interest. It says, "So you do not bear sin because of him," meaning, if you do not correct him, you might be punished on his account. Rashi adds that this rebuke must be done in private so as not to cause embarrassment. In particular, there must be no tolerance for the biggest 3 infractions: idolatry, sexual immorality, and murder. One is not allowed to engage in them even to save a life, unlike all other commandments. The Talmud is particularly emphatic on avoiding idolatry. Is the aim here that the whole world be Jewish? No. Jews don't proselytize. They did more than 2,000 years ago because the rest of the world was idolatrous, and they needed to wean them out of it. Idolatry is not practiced much now in areas where Jews live. Also, Islam and Christianity made it illegal under penalty of death. Beyond that, Judaism may be the only religion that teaches that there is nothing wrong with not being a member. Judaism is not an upgrade. The Mishnah says, "Do not disparage any man, and do not shun anything, for there is no man that does not have his hour, and there is no thing that does not have its place." The Tosefta, a supplement to the Mishnah, says, "The righteous of all nations have a share in the world to come." The Talmud says, "God does not withhold reward from Gentiles who perform his commandments." The Midrash says, "Why does the Holy One, blessed be he, love the righteous?" Because righteousness is not due to inheritance or family connections. If a man wants to become a Cohen or a Levite, he cannot. Why? Because his father was neither a Cohen nor a Levite. However, if someone wants to become righteous, even if he is a Gentile, he can, because righteousness is not inheritance, unquote. A later Midrash says, "I call heaven and earth as witnesses. Any individual, whether Gentile or Jew, man or woman, servant or maid, can bring the divine presence upon himself in accordance with his deeds," unquote. What deeds? What makes a Gentile righteous? The Jewish answer is following the 7 Noahide laws. These laws are derived from the Torah and apply to all mankind. The Talmud says, quote, 7 precepts were commanded to all: to establish courts of justice, and refrain from blasphemy, idolatry, adultery, murder, stealing, and eating the flesh of live animals," unquote. Jews have a history of tolerance. They have been even more tolerant than God wanted. To wit, the Torah commanded, quote, "You shall drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you. You shall clear out the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to occupy it. If you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land, then those whom you allow to remain will be as spikes in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they will harass you in the land in which you settle." Unquote. But the Israelites did not do that. The book of Judges says that one by one they allowed them to stay, and concludes, quote, "And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites." Unquote. Now let me make 3 observations on the practice of tolerance. First, tolerance and respect are granted only by line item, not wholesale. Let me take Islam as an example. If you're asked, "Do you respect Islam?" there is only one politically correct answer. I have nothing but the deepest respect for Islam, the kind and gentle religion of peace. But the reality is a bit more nuanced. Every religion, every philosophy, every system, every ism makes 3 kinds of statements. The first kind, I agree with and therefore respect. For example, there's only one God. The second kind, I disagree with, but can still respect, because I realize it's just another way of achieving the same goal. For example, praying 5 times a day instead of 3, fasting during daytime for a whole month instead of fasting for 2 specific days for a full day and on 4 specific days during daytime. The third kind, I disagree with and do not respect. For example, negative depictions of Jews in the Quran or by its commentators. So again, a respected is granted statement by statement, not globally. The second observation is that tolerance implies a paradox. This paradox was described in 1945 by Karl Popper, a Jewish philosopher of science. He said that if a society is tolerant without limit, its tolerance will be destroyed by the intolerant. Unlimited tolerance leads to no tolerance. For a society to remain tolerant, it must be intolerant of intolerance. This is what he said in his book, The Open Society and Its Enemies. Quote, "Less well known is the paradox of tolerance. Unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend the tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed and tolerance along with them." I do not imply, for instance, that we should always suppress the utterance of intolerant philosophies, as long as we can counter them by rational argument and keep them in check by public opinion. Suppression would certainly be unwise. But we should claim the right to suppress them if necessary, even by force, for it may easily turn out that they are not prepared to meet us on the level of rational argument, but begin by denouncing all argument. They may forbid their followers to listen to rational argument because it is deceptive, and teach them to answer arguments by the use of their fists or pistols. We should therefore claim, in the name of tolerance, the right not to tolerate the intolerance." Unquote. So giving unlimited free speech to the intolerant is a mistake. How much to limit free speech depends on the circumstances. For example, Europe prohibits hate speech, but the US does not. But then Europe has more of a problem with free speech being abused. For example, in France, but not in the US, the following are prohibited by law: incitement to hatred, discrimination, slander and racial insults, racist, anti-Semitic or xenophobic activities, including Holocaust denial, hatred against people because of their sex, sexual orientation, or disability, presentation of drugs in a positive light, and incitement to their consumption, insult to the national flag or anthem, and others. What is prohibited in the US are public obscenity, defamation, incitement to riot or to illegal actions, terrorist threats, false advertising, perjury, disclosing privileged information such as trade secrets or classified information, and others. And states may have additional restrictions. The third observation concerns the relationship between tolerance and caring. Can one feel strongly about something, yet still be tolerant of those who feel the opposite? Or is being tolerant a sign one does not really care? Is tolerance a virtue or a mask for indifference? Some will say, why point out the difference? Either one is okay. But it is not. The most tolerant Jews are frequently the least observant. They assimilate the fastest. Their branch on the Jewish tree dies out. Is this a sign of not caring rather than being tolerant? On the other hand, the most intolerant Jews are frequently the most religious. Do they care too much? The Talmud says, quote, "Why was the first temple destroyed? Because idolatry, sexual immorality, and murder prevailed. But why was the second temple destroyed, given that in its time the people were occupying themselves with Torah observance and mitzvot, and the practice of deeds of kindness? Because senseless hatred, sinat chinam, prevailed." That teaches you that senseless hatred is considered as serious as the three sins of idolatry, sexual immorality, and murder combined. Unquote. Does the Talmud imply that too much observance can lead to senseless hatred? Can one care too much, so much so that the slightest disagreement causes hatred? Prior to the destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans in the year 70, religious fervor in the land of Israel ran very high. There were the Pharisees, that is, the rabbis, who taught the oral law and emphasized the world to come as a reward for observance. The Sadducees, who rejected the oral law and the world to come and represented the aristocracy. A monastic sect called the Essenes. Christians and followers of other Messiah candidates, not to mention Hellenized and followers of other Messiah candidates. Not to mention Hellenized and Romanized secular Jews. In the political arena, there were those who favored an uprising against the Roman oppressors, including at least three factions of zealots, Kanaim in Hebrew, and those who opposed it, including spies and collaborators. The Talmud implies that it's clearly not enough to be technically observant. It tells about Rabbi Akiva's 24,000 students who died of disease because they did not treat each other with respect in their religious disputes, and about how Hillel prevailed against Shammai just because his disciples were kind and humble and always quoted the other side's opinions before their own. It seems to echo the prayer of a little girl in the religious school who wrote, "Dear God, please make the bad people good and the good people nice." Now the Talmud says not all disputes are bad. There are bitter disputes even among very observant Jews on what appear to be minor points. But what is of paramount importance is the intention behind the dispute. Quote, "A controversy for the sake of heaven, machloket leshem shamayim, will result in something that endures. One that is not for the sake of heaven will not result in something that endures. Which is a controversy for the sake of heaven? The controversy between Hillel and Shammai. And which is not for the sake of heaven? The controversy of Korach and all his faction." Unquote. So to know which is which, one must ask, is the motivation a genuine desire to understand the Torah? Or is it envy, greed, hatred, lust, or desire for power? These disputes are frequently used as an argument against religion. Steven Weinberg, a Jewish physicist who received the Nobel Prize in 1979, famously said, quote, "With or without religion, you would have good people doing good things and evil people doing evil things. But for good people to do evil things, that takes religion." Unquote. He's wrong. One could say just as appropriately, for evil people to do good things, that takes religion. One could also say, good people can be led to do evil things even without religion. We can certainly at least say, for evil people to do less evil things, that takes religion. Indeed, the record shows that the religiously inspired massacres of the Inquisition or the Crusades killed far fewer people than the secularly inspired massacres of Nazism or communism. We can conclude by saying that Judaism is very tolerant, especially compared to other systems, but it places limits on that tolerance. These limits are necessary. Shabbat Shalom.